Well, well, well. What a game. Alabama continues stacking their big wins. And today, we've got to acknowledge this because, ladies and gentlemen, this was not the Vanderbilt of yesteryear. This was a really good team that's been really good on defense, that's really dangerous on offense, with a quarterback that's putting up big numbers in Diego Pavia. And I'm not going to lie to you. If you're someone who is right now looking back, looking at the stats of the day, maybe you didn't get to catch the game and you're seeing the end score, do not be fooled. This game was not as close as the numbers would indicate, and we're going to talk about exactly why. We're also going to talk about an area for the Tide that I've been critical of. I've been critical of Kane Womack, but I have to give credit where credit is due. Today, when the moment was the brightest in that second half, Kane Womack showed up. The defense showed up. The second half adjustments showed up. And that's really one of the things you can ask for, right? One of the only things you can ask for, especially when you're playing a team like Vandy that's going to give you so much eye candy, that really has so much at their disposal in terms of how they want to attack you. Kane Womack answered the call. If you just look at the first half stats, for Alabama's defense, it's not too different than the total game stats. Alabama gave up 135 yards on the ground, and the vast majority of that came in the first half. The vast majority of that came in the first half. This was an Alabama defense that shut things down in the second half. I also want to give a lot of love to Ty Simpson. Ty Simpson is playing as well, if not better, than any quarterback in the nation right now. And if you're someone who maybe you're not a fan of the Alabama Crimson Tide, that's perfectly fine. We're not all perfect. But if you are someone and your team has a quarterback that's playing lights out and you want to argue, I don't think he's playing as well as X, Y, or Z quarterback, you have to at least meet me halfway and say, I may not think he's playing better than said quarterback. He's playing as well as any quarterback in the nation. I didn't anticipate this. This is one of those moments where I am going to be eating crow. I thought Ty Simpson would be a good quarterback, but I thought that he'd be a quarterback that would make enough plays to win Alabama's games, but it would be the weapons around him really allowing Ty Simpson to grow into the role. And I got to be 100% honest with you. It's kind of been the exact opposite. We're talking about Ty Simpson, who is making NFL throws every single week. The touchdown to Jeremy Bernard, the 2-minute drill to end the half. You had to have points there. Alabama's defense was struggling in the first half. You had to have the points there. He marches them right down the field. That strike to Jeremy Bernard, he's had 4 or 5 throws this year that are analogous to that throw. And what I mean when I say analogous is when you look at how he's attacking the defense. He's moving the safety out the way and then fitting it into a pocket. There's not many quarterbacks in college football that are going to make that throw. There will be people say, Ty, you're crazy. All these quarterbacks can make that throw. They can't. They can't. Because if you're too early, you risk the underneath route or the underneath defender breaking on it. If you're too late, you risk the safety breaking on it. You have to fit that ball in a window that's much smaller than it looks on TV. The timing of that has to be perfect. And he has been sensational. Now, one of the things that I really was interested in seeing from Ty Simpson, one of the things that actually I think we talked about here last weekend, if I'm not mistaken. How do you respond whenever you personally make a mistake in terms of whenever you personally throw that interception? How do you respond? Because week one, the entire Alabama team didn't respond well to adversity. We've seen that narrative is now gone. They had adversity today. They responded well. They had some adversity on the road against Georgia. They responded well. I wanted to see, how do you respond? And of course, you don't want your quarterback to throw an interception, but I wanted to see, how do you respond whenever it's not going well? Okay, so you go down the field. It's looking like vintage Alabama offense from 2025. Beautiful stuff from Ty Simpson. You throw the interception. Now, this is one of those where I'm going to choose to look at it glass half full in terms of the interception, because it was a fourth down play, and that interception was almost like a punt. You backed Vandy up further into their own territory. Alabama's field goal kicking right now is just too unpredictable, especially at range. It's just not quite there. How do you respond to that? And he responded really well. Now, I do want to give some shout outs. Dancing, thank you for being in here. Thank you for interacting. Alpha, Mark, Steve, Jay Branyan, and then all the people over on YouTube. We have Mike Jones, Bishop, Stevie G, Roll Tide, Rise Up, Sparkplug, Latoya, Patriot, Conversations, Kwame, and MC St. Pete. And Pete on YouTube makes a great point where he says anyone complaining about the defense and Coach Walmick should sit down. Pete, I'm going to go ahead and once again eat crow. I was complaining. Not heavily, but simply pointing out this is something that's continuing to hurt Alabama. I wasn't making tweets saying fire Kane. Nothing like that. Nothing like that, Pete. But I was saying this is something that's continuing to hurt Alabama. And when you look ahead, you have teams that are going to hurt you with some of the things Vandy wanted to do. OU, off the top of my head, if Mateer is healthy, that's a dangerous offense. That's a very dangerous offense in terms of what he can do with his legs, with his arm, making plays whenever plays break down, getting outside the pocket, keeping you honest. But the second half, this Bama defense said enough is enough. We are not going to be the counterpuncher anymore. We're throwing first, and we're throwing heavy. And it was a beautiful second half. Beautiful second half by this Alabama defense. The defensive front made Pavia bail several times. I thought that the secondary also played pretty well. Now, there were a lot of completions that were just due to Alabama playing zone and Vandy and an experienced quarterback. Because remember, this is a really well-coached Vandy team. This is not your grandfather's Vandy. And I can't believe I'm saying that. I cannot believe in the year of our Lord 2025, I'm here saying this is not your old Vandy team. This is a good team. Good on defense, good on offense. They've got a good quarterback who, yeah, he runs his mouth a lot, but guess what? He's a dog. I'm fine with Diego Pavia running his mouth because he's a dog. Several times he made a throw and then he tried to go make a block after. He's about it. You can run your mouth if you're about it. He's about it. But Alabama made the stops when it mattered in that second half. Now, I do have a bit of a complaint. And if you've watched me for any stretch of time, as RTR says, Theismann, I love that. That needs to be on a shirt. Hey, someone, RTR, you better get on that real quick. You better go buy you a Cricut and start printing some Theismann shirts right now before someone else does. Because I'll buy one. You let me know. I'll be the first to place an order, RTR 17. I'll be the first to place an order. So this was a really key game. And I do want to complain about something. And what I was getting at is if you've watched me for any stretch of time, I typically don't talk at all about the broadcast commentary. But the commentary, to me, at the end of this game was perplexing. The commentary team kept talking about, oh, well, Vandy can play with anybody if Pavia's playing his game, and he just wasn't playing his game. Why is that, commentary team? Was it possibly because Alabama's defense was able to at least get him uncomfortable enough and make adjustments that stifled what they wanted to do? And furthermore, the reason why that to me was so asinine is you're talking about what Vandy didn't do. How about what Alabama didn't do? How about Alabama leaving how many points on the board? If you convert those field goals to touchdowns, which Alabama has been so good at, if you don't do some of those cute trick plays that Alabama called, and you just try and move the chains, this isn't a game. This isn't a game. That's why I started this off by saying it's a little bit misleading. Vandy played well. I have immense respect for Clark Lee. I have immense respect for Diego Pavia. I know there are Alabama fans that don't like him because he ran his mouth. And that's fine. I like him because the dude backs it up. He's a gamer. Like, he's fun to watch. He's fun to watch. But the commentary is talking about what Vandy didn't do. What about what Bama didn't do? 2 missed field goals, multiple touchdowns left on the board. What about what Bama didn't do? That to me was weird, quite frankly. And I get it. I get it. When you're live, I do have an understanding of it, because being live, you can get caught up in a narrative and miss the big picture. It's easy to do. But this, ladies and gentlemen, this, like the Georgia game, the Bama defense was better today than they were against Georgia. This is a better offense than Georgia has. Bama's defense was better in this game. And if you look at it, Vanderbilt had 2 long runs, 35 or 36 yards and 65 yards. They had 1 run for 65, once again, and another for 36. So of their 135 yards, 101 yards came on 2 plays. This Alabama defense answered the call. This Alabama defense answered the call. Pete says, I hate it when teams try and get cute. You and me both. I accept it, Pete, whenever you're up 14 points, 17 points, and now your mindset is, okay, let's cut the head off the snake. And then even then, when it doesn't work, you look strange for calling it. But at least if you're up by 14, by 17, and you're like, all right, now we're going to cut the head off the snake. Now we're going for that body blow. We're not going to hit you up top with the haymaker. We're going for the massive body blow. We want to see you keel over. We want to see the will leave your eyes. I get that. I 100% can understand that. I'm not saying it's my favorite thing. I'm not saying if I was an offensive coordinator, first off, if I was an offensive coordinator, we would lose. Let's get that very clear. I'm not saying that's what I would do. But I understand why you would do that if you had that lead. I very much well understand that. Alabama's offense in this game, we've given a lot of flowers to Alabama's defense, deservedly so. Kerry Collins says Bama held a team that averages over 55 points a game to 14. Great point. Great point, Kerry. Unbelievable point. And like I said, Vandy had 100. Someone please, if anybody can, Vandy had something like 120 yards rushing in the first half. They ended with 135. 101 of them came in 2 plays. I get it. There were several plays that when you looked at Alabama's defense, you're like, man, the shovel pass, that killed Alabama. It did. But by and large, this Alabama defense today played better than I initially gave them credit for, and they played a lot of better football than I think a lot of people are going to give them credit for. The cute plays on offense, didn't love seeing that. But let's really talk about Alabama's offense, because outside that Florida State game, which I'm not trying to down Florida State as a team. Let's get one thing very clear. When I say what I'm about to say, I don't want any Florida State fans saying, oh, so you're saying that you'd beat Florida State in a rematch? Maybe. I am saying maybe. I want the rematch. I want the rematch. But what I am saying is this is a different team. This is a much different team than they were when they played FSU. Sorry, I had to send out a tweet. This Bama offense, though, this was the first game since Florida State where I think they left food. They left meat on the bone. And if you're Alabama, that should fire you up. This game wasn't as close as the score indicates. You had 2 missed field goals. You had multiple drives that I think you got too cute. You went away from what was working, and you settled for field goals instead of settling for touchdowns. And conversation says they should have been runs by Miller, or you just let Ty cook. Ty Simpson's been great. I'm fine with either. Either hand it off to Miller, who had a great day. We're about to get to that. Or you let Ty Simpson cook, because he's been doing fantastic. I thought he missed 2, EO boy. Was it only the 1? Let me check. I thought it was 2, but even then, point stands. For some reason, I had it as 2. Nope, you're right. You're right, EO boy. I'm wrong. Good catch. Good catch. For some reason, I thought he'd missed 2. Good catch, EO boy. I'm 100% wrong. Rich, I hear you. He played really well. That drop was unfortunate. That was a tough catch. He should have caught it. He should have caught it. Ryan Williams should have caught that ball. That was a really tough catch. If you're going to drop a ball, I'd rather you drop that ball than the one you did against Georgia, because at least I can be like, okay, yeah, you were trying to contort your body and you were half falling down as you were trying to catch it. Fair enough. But he had a good day. Listen, he can still work in that area. He absolutely can. He's 18. He'll be fine. I have full faith in Ryan Williams. And someone made a great point the other day. Someone pointed out, if you go back to Julio at Alabama, Julio had some drops as well. Julio had some drops as well. He'll be fine. I have full confidence in Ryan Williams. And one thing, Rich, I do grant you, he should have made that catch. I do grant you, he's had a drop problem. I agree 100% with you on both of those points. But this is where football is a beautiful game, because I'm a nerd and football is chess. Ryan Williams, by simply existing, creates hell for defenses. I made a tweet, and I forget exactly which play, but I tweeted out that was beautiful route concept. And what had happened was Ryan Williams went right up the seam, and I believe it was Bernard came right behind him. The DB had to make a choice. The safety had to make a choice. Because if I sit on Bernard, Ryan Williams over the top. If I bail on Bernard and go for Williams in coverage, Ty Simpson's going to identify it and make a beautiful throw, and he did. So I agree with you. There is a drop problem right now. I'm not worried about it. He'll be just fine. He's very young. He should be a freshman. He is a phenomenal player. But by Ryan Williams simply existing, he affects the game in a way that very few playmakers in college football do. Because most of the time, you watch those safeties, they're looking around for where's two. Okay, there he is. So now I need to do my job and think about him. His existence creates problems. At the end of this game, Ty Simpson went 23 of 31, 340 yards, averaged 11 per, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. I loved the response to the interception. That was a question I had last weekend. What do you do whenever you have a turnover? We hadn't seen it yet. He was riding such a high. What do you do whenever you have a turnover? And he bounced back as if it never happened. And dare I say, I didn't think I would be saying this. If you asked me who I thought Ty Simpson would be, I would have answered you a higher ceiling Jake Coker, where I think he's going to be better than Jake Coker. I think he's got better ability than Jake Coker. Where I was wrong, he's got some Bryce Young in his game, where he's using his legs as an extension of the passing game. And he does a beautiful job of going on the run, stopping, setting his hips, and then throwing a strike. And we've seen it multiple times. We saw it against Georgia. We saw it in the touchdown today. We saw it several times. He's got more Bryce Young in his game than he does Jake Coker. He has exceeded every expectation I had. Ty Simpson should absolutely be in quarterback one conversations right now. And scouts everywhere should be looking, because he is tearing teams up with the intermediate game. And he's not relying on it being outside the numbers. He's attacking you in the middle. He's attacking you on the outside. And just wait. Once they get the deep game clicking, which is the only part of this offense right now that's not really clicking. We'll talk about the run game in a second, because 2 weeks ago I made a claim about the run game that had some of you probably looking at me sideways. But if this offense gets the deep ball clicking, watch out. Because now as a defense, you don't have an answer. Now, Tuskegee, I did want to answer your question. Thank you very much for interacting. EO Boy, thank you for interacting. Hall of Fame College Football in the YouTube chat. Your Sooners look good, my man. Happy you're in here. Hope you're doing well. A-Watt in the YouTube chat. Whopper in the YouTube chat. But Tuskegee, I did want to answer your question. Tuskegee asks, Ty, if this is a different team than week one, does this team have an identity on offense, and what is their identity on defense? Great question on both, Tuskegee. The answer is yes, this team does have an identity on offense. The team's identity on offense is being able to keep defenses in an impossible situation. This is a pass-first offense. It just is. Right? That's the reality of the situation. This is a pass-first offense. But they're running the ball enough to keep you honest. They are going to give you so many different looks, though. They are going to be so multiple in what they do, you can't keep up. It's just so hard to keep up with what the team is doing right now. So they absolutely have an identity on offense. What is the identity on defense? To me, the identity on defense, Tuskegee, is a bend but don't break. And I think today was a great example of that. When we look at so many of the completions that Vanderbilt was able to generate, they were able to generate them because Alabama was in zone. Pavia found the soft spot in the zone. Hey, that's big praise, Rich. That's real big praise. But I'm telling you, and EO Boy says Ty is a more athletic Mac Jones. He is, but EO Boy, man, he's reminding me a lot of Bryce. the way he's able, I don't think his release is quite as quick as Bryce, because Bryce was like a rattlesnake with his release. Like, it was boom, and it was out. Bryce's release is lightning quick. It's freaky. Like a frog with a mustache. It's not natural. It's unsettling. I don't think Ty Simpson's release is that quick, but what he can do that Bryce Young did so well was be on the move and reset his hips, and instantly, bam. That right there, there's a little bit of Bryce Young in his game. And it is so much fun to watch. I will go ahead and come clean. Bryce is my favorite quarterback that ever played at Alabama. In terms of enjoyment to watch, I often make the joke, have you ever seen Harry Houdini and Bryce Young in the same room? Of course you haven't. Coincidence? I think not. A. Watt says Jam was big today. Now let's talk about the running game. And earlier I told you all, I made a claim a few weeks ago that some people looked sideways at. And I said, hey, I know people are saying Alabama can't run the football, and I'm not saying I think that Alabama has the number one rushing offense in the nation. Certainly they don't. I'm not here to lie to you. But what I am here to tell you, I think that talk of Alabama's run game being dead is not rooted in reality. And you want to know part of the reason why? When we look at Wisconsin, why in the world would Alabama have ran at Wisconsin? It wouldn't have made sense. I made the analogy when they played Wisconsin, go back to how Alabama played Cincinnati. Alabama didn't throw the ball a lot in that Cincinnati game because Cincinnati was playing a 3-3-5. Why are we going to throw into the strength of your defense when we can just run it down your throat? Okay, now you fast forward to Wisconsin, it was the exact opposite. Wisconsin loaded the box. Why am I going to run into your loaded box that's a pretty good rush defense if I can just kill you with the throw? Against Georgia, we saw them keep Georgia's defense honest because Kirby is Kirby. And I know Schumann's calling plays, but Kirby Smart is Kirby Smart. He's like Nick Saban in the sense of they have a defensive philosophy, and that's what they're going to do. Do you want to know one of the biggest pieces of respect Ty Simpson has gotten? Kirby Smart had to start making changes to his defense, and Kirby really doesn't like doing that. I'm not saying he's unwilling, but Kirby loves to play man. Ty Simpson was killing them, so Kirby said, all right, we got to go zone. We got to really go zone. Rich Slay says, Bryce is the coolest quarterback in the pocket I've ever seen. Yeah, his pocket presence was incredible. Mark saying Mac Jones was a beast. Hey, Mark, do not think when I say I think Ty is more Bryce than Mac, it's a dig at Mac Jones. Mac Jones was unbelievable. And I absolutely understand the Mac Jones comparisons. Like, I do. In terms of how Mac Jones attacked defenses, I 100% see it. I don't think it's a bad comparison at all. In fact, I think it's probably going to be the most common comparison. But with Ty, he's got this ability to create and make magic happen that Bryce had. And that's where I'm saying. So I 100% understand the Mac Jones comparisons. I think they're apt. I think they're accurate. But there's just something. There's just something about his game that's a little bit magic. Football Fanatic says, honestly, I think Ryan Williams did a lot better. He's definitely been working to improve himself. I'm not worried about Ryan Williams football. Not at all. He'll be just fine. Julio had drops. Ryan Williams is 18 years old, and Ryan Williams affects the defense even when he doesn't get the ball. He is the ultimate chess piece. There's only a handful of them. That 2-minute drive was a thing of beauty. Couldn't have orchestrated it any better. Ooh, Rich, we're lining up for another debate today. We won't, though, because I love Tua. Love Tua. Oh, we talked slightly about that drive, EO boy. That was beautiful work. And you know what's crazy? That's a pattern right now. When you get multiple data points, that becomes a pattern. And now we've seen Ty Simpson operating the quick offense right before half. He's automatic. 100% Latoya, 100%. And the ability to set his feet and make the throws is very impressive. Once again, Ty Simpson, 23 of 31, 340 yards, averaged 11 per. 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Now let's get to the running game. Jam Miller, 22 carries, 136 yards. As I said, in football, there were several big-time recruits at this game. I don't have the exhaustive list. I would have to search for the exhaustive list. It was text to me earlier. But I do know you had big-name guys, some already committed, like a Jariah Edwards, who, I'm not going to lie, I think before he even committed, I was on another stream over on the Bama Standard. I said he's my favorite. Him and Edmonds are my 2 favorite DBs in this class. And you got both of them. So that was a big-time recruit at the game. There were some others. I'm not sure if Ced Morgan was there. Football. I'd have to try and find that. I'd hate to tell you wrong. Yeah, it was text to me during the game, Football Fanatic. But I was so busy watching the game, I didn't look at it. So I'm not 100% certain what that list was. A few weeks ago, I probably had some of you looking at me crazy when I said Alabama's rushing attack is not as bad as people are saying. This is why I said that. Alabama's offensive line is still shuffling around, which I must admit I don't love. I don't love that you're having Wilkin Formby. Perfect example. I don't love that Wilkin Formby is going from right tackle to right guard, because the play today that he gave up the sack, that's a direct result of him going from right tackle to right guard. He went way too wide, gave up inside, because he's used to playing tackle. You want my opinion? 64 is your right tackle. Michael Carroll, he buried dudes today. There was a play where he straight up took it was like 92 or 94 on Vandy's defense. He buried him in the dirt. That's your right tackle. That kid is a future first rounder. And EO Boy says Formby isn't it. EO Boy, Formby is one of those guys where he has his highs, he has his lows, but we are doing him no favors. We are doing him no favors by saying, hey, you're a right tackle this play. Guess what, bud? Next play, you're a right guard. EO Boy asks, is Roberts hurt? I don't know. I'm going to be 100% honest. I know that he had a major concussion, I believe. They were being very careful with him. I don't know why he's not on the field, though. Because if you have Roberts at right guard and Carroll at right tackle, watch out. You're looking at a Joe Moore Award level offensive line. I already think Alabama has the best center in the nation. I don't know. Roll Tide 1831 says Roberts isn't hurt. I didn't believe he was, but I don't know what the deal is there. I don't know. So I don't particularly want to give out any wrong information because I just don't know. Alabama had 146 yards rushing. Jam Miller averaged 6.2 per. Kevin Riley, I continue to be impressed by him. Caden Proctor is going to find his way on the all. Caden Proctor might be one of the first players ever to have 2 offensive positions in the all SEC team. He might be one of the first players ever to do that. All SEC left tackle, all SEC athlete. Unbelievable what they continue to do with him. Jeremy Bernard had a rush for -3, and Ty Simpson ended up losing 6 yards to sacks. And that's one thing. If anybody looks at this game, there was one sack in particular that to me was definitely the offensive line. That's where, Formby went wide. They attacked interior. Outside of that, the sacks, Ty's got to get rid of the ball. That's literally the only thing I can say is Ty Simpson. If I could give one critique, and it's the only critique you can give, he needs to get rid of the ball quicker. That is a tell of his inexperience. But to me, it's also a tell that he believes supremely in himself and he knows that he can create. Bryce Young did this. And it's one of the things that killed me that Bryce did. But Bryce Young would hold on to the ball longer than he should because he knew, I'm a magician. I can make things out of nothing. Ty has that as well. I have no doubt, though, after this game, Grubb, he, and DeBoer will be in the film room and they'll be like, hey, man, we get it. You're on fire. You're playing quarterback at the highest level in college football right now. There's nobody playing quarterback better than Ty Simpson. If you're a fan of another team, we led this off by saying you can say, hey, I think my favorite team's quarterback is playing as well as Ty Simpson. You can't argue in good faith that there's anybody playing better than Ty Simpson. And I noticed RTR isn't in here anymore. He might have been going to make those shirts that say Tysman. You need to get on that. Let me know. Shoot me a DM. I will place the first order. I'm being 100% serious on that. Love Alabama's running duo. Yep, I 100% agree, Samuel. But let's talk about what Ty's able to do. Alabama didn't have a 100-yard receiver in this game. But what they did have is Ryan Williams had 98 yards, Jeremy Bernard 82, Isaiah Horton, who continues to make big-time catches, 66 yards, Cuevas 35, Lotzier Brooks 30, Rico Scott 11, Kevin Riley 10, Jam Miller 8. You had 8 guys catch the ball. Rich, I do agree with you. Dante Moore is a monster. Hey, if you were going to give me anybody to have a QB debate, you gave me the guy. You gave the right answer. Dante Moore is a monster. He is an unbelievable quarterback. Really fun player to watch. He deserves his flowers. He deserves his flowers, Rich. Good one. Real good one. I got a lot of respect for that answer. Good one. Yeah, but like Rich says, is playing as good, not better, though. Bama's level of competition has been better than what Oregon has played. But I don't want to take anything away from Dante Moore. Dante Moore is playing unbelievable football right now. Really fun football to watch. Alabama had 340 yards with their receivers. Bama had a fumble recovered. They had an interception. They had some interceptions that should have not been called back. Lotzier Brooks had 64 yards on special teams as well. He's going to be a problem. Mark my words. I said, EO boy, I know you saw it. Rich, you may have seen it, but I know if anybody here saw the video, it was EO boy. Before this season started, I gave you wide receivers you had to know. And I said, you can't ignore Lotzier Brooks. His time, he's going to bust a big play here soon. He was one of my guys. He's going to bust a big play here soon. And the only reason we're not seeing more Rico Scott is because who's got a better wide receiver room than Alabama? Once again, kind of the same argument we gave for Ty Simpson. You can give me wide receiver rooms if you're a fan of them and say, hey, I think my wide receiver room is just as good, and I may grant you that. Whose is better? Whose wide receiver room is better, top to bottom, than Alabama's? Rico Scott, Lotzier Brooks, Derek Meadows is going to be a problem. Ryan Williams, Jeremy Bernard, Isaiah Horton. Jalen Mbakwe got some play today. Then you look at the tight ends. You got Josh Cuevas. You got Caleb Edwards. You look at the running backs. You got Jam Miller. You got Kevin Riley. These are all receiving threats. Whose passing weapons are better, top to bottom, than Alabama's? I just don't know that you can name one. I just don't know that you can name one. And GSP Scott, if you were asking where I've been studying for the LSAT. Just took the LSAT yesterday. So we're back. EO boy, Brooks was a 3-star and he really wasn't ranked. He really flew up the rankings because he went to one camp and was unbelievable. And roll tide, Jalen Hale. Great point. When he was a freshman, that guy's got ability, man. The guy's got ability. And I've had two people ask about Richard Young, both Tuskegee and Specimen Andy. At this point, Richard Young is incredibly talented. But for what this offense wants to do, I just think that, one, Jam Miller in pass protection is unbelievable. We saw this last year against Georgia when he smacked some Georgia defender, took the helmet off of him. Cole Adams, thank you very much. Roll Tide, 1831. Thank you very much. Two big names there by Roll Tide. Thank you very much for that. My point with Richard Young is this. He's an incredibly talented running back. If he gets the opportunities, he will break out. But I think Kevin Riley and Jam Miller are the exact running backs they want for this offense. In terms of style, they are what this offense wants. They are exactly what this offense wants. Jam Miller is a unbelievable blocker. Riley is playing great football. Both of them are real receiving threats. When those two guys are on the field, as a defense, you can't key in on what's happening. Because you don't know what it's going to be. Could they hand it off to them? Could they run some sort of screen? Could they send them out on routes? Could they just be blocking? You don't know. The whole offense is open to you, and I really think that's why those two guys have the leg up. We started the stream by talking about this. Alabama's defense had a big day. They really did. If you're just now in here, I have a crazy stat for you. I have a few, actually. Because someone had a great tweet. I retweeted it and quote tweeted it, but I do want to talk about this. So Vanderbilt ran the ball for 126 yards on the ground, and this is shout out to Blake Byler, by the way. If you don't follow him on Twitter, you should. This comes from him. Want to give credit where it's due. He says Vanderbilt ran the ball for 126 yards on the ground in the first half this afternoon. They ended with 135. And they only had -1 yards in terms of a negative run. You still had the sack, but Vanderbilt ran for 126 yards on the ground in the first half. Alabama held them to just 9 rushing yards in the second half. And remember, of those 126 yards, 101 of them came from 2 plays. Yancey had a great game, Roll Tide. The shovel pass, that wasn't on him at all. Yancey Pierre set the edge this game as well as I've seen any Alabama defender do it this season, but the Phil guy on that shovel pass was nowhere to be seen. He set the edge. He made it cut inside. The Phil guy has got to blow up that running back in the hole. He set the edge beautifully. He played great football. And then his eye discipline was great. Really, the whole defense eye discipline was great outside of a few plays. But if we're going to be critical, and I have been critical, we also have to acknowledge when a great job is done. Alabama's defense did a great job today. They really did. They Absolutely did. This game was not as close as the score would indicate. That's why I was frustrated with these announcers talking about, oh, well, this is what Vandy didn't do. What about what Bama didn't do? Left points all over the board. Lisa says Smith came back. Yeah, James Smith was huge coming into this game. London Simmons is going to be a special player for Alabama as well. So we've talked about the offense. We've talked about the defense. Let's put a bow on this. Because I talked about last week that I never, ever liked the narrative when Bama lost to Florida State and people were saying Kalen DeBoer is not the guy. That's nonsense. Kalen DeBoer is an amazing coach. He is now 13-2 versus ranked teams. That's the highest win percentage of any coach. He's 13-2 against ranked teams. And I get it. They dropped games last year that they shouldn't have dropped. I hear you. I understand. But now we see a focus Tide. Dejoun Lee absolutely did ball out, Roll Tide. It's just a... Guys, this is one of the things. This coaching staff as a whole is unbelievable. Mo Linguist, he should be starting to get conversation for the best DB coach in the nation. When Saban retired, Saban went out there and said, I'm worried about Alabama's secondary. And if every Alabama fan out there is being honest, let's all have our honest moment right now. Let's all have our honest moment. We were all worried about Alabama's secondary when Saban retired. Fast forward to now, it's one of the best secondaries in college football. It is unbelievable. You have Dejoun Lee, who would be starting at 99% of college football teams, who's not, because you have Damani Jackson, because you have Zabian Brown. You have Cam Calhoun, who was a top 10 graded corner in the nation. Bray Hubbard, Keon Sabb. You have Zay Mincy, who's getting better and better. He's going to be a great player. You have Ivan Taylor back there. You have Dre Kirkpatrick Jr., who's going to be a problem. So he needs his flowers, first and foremost. But not only has the assistant coaches done an unbelievable job, the offensive line, I know we were just complaining about shuffling the offensive line. Guys, do y'all realize that the offensive line is light years better than it was Saban's last year? This offensive line is light years better. This is the best offensive line Bama has had since 2020. I'm not even saying it's perfect, but this offensive line is light years better. So Mo's done a great job. Coach Cap has done a great job. Shepard has done a great job. Tight ends coach has done a great job. Gillespie continues to do a great job. That was an amazing keep. And I know people were hard on Freddie Roach. Bama's interior defensive line actually looks like they got some dudes out there. If Jeremiah Beeman was still healthy, do you realize how good this Alabama defensive front would be? With Tim Keenan fully healthy, with Jeremiah Beeman, with James Smith, with London Simmons, Edric Hill is playing great football. Yonze Pierre is now growing. Quay Russaw, if he was healthy. This defensive front has ability. They're still growing. I'm not saying they're perfect, but we need to acknowledge what this Alabama staff has done. I said last week, and Rich and I kind of had a debate, and it's a good debate to have. It is a good debate to have. I grant you that. Nick Saban is the greatest coach of all time, but do we remember how many struggle games Alabama had that season? And they still, to Rich's point, were a play away from playing in the national championship, which is only proof of what an anomaly Nick Saban is in terms of coaching. He is the greatest coach of all time. That Alabama team nearly lost several games in the regular season and was still one play away from a national championship with an offensive line that was not good. And they were still one play away from a national championship. Saban retires, DeBoer comes in, they lose multiple games in the regular season, and everybody is saying DeBoer's not the guy. But ladies and gentlemen, Bama was real close to losing multiple games with Nick Saban that last year. It is a credit to the players they had on that team, because there were some great players on that team. I don't want to diminish them in the slightest. Please do not think that's what I'm doing. It was a credit to them and a credit to having an anomaly, an actual breathing legend in Nick Saban, that you didn't lose multiple games and that you were a play away from competing in a national championship. But when they hired DeBoer, I said, I think Alabama goes 9-3. Why? Because you had 30 guys hit the transfer portal. The greatest coach of all time just retired. DeBoer's not from the South, which I didn't think was as big of a deal as a lot of other people. But the reason why I say that, the team has to buy into him. That doesn't happen instantly. I don't care who you hire. They got to buy in. So then we fast forward to this year. You drop a game early, but he's now 13-2 versus ranked teams. That's unbelievable. His overall record, unbelievable. And ladies and gentlemen, the evaluation of this Alabama staff, unbelievable. Michael Carroll, I thought, was the best offensive lineman. I don't care whether you're talking guard. I don't care whether you're attacking tackle. I thought he was the best offensive lineman that you could recruit last year. Knocked that eval out the park. Lotzier Brooks knocked that eval out the park. Dejon Lee knocked that eval out the park. And then you want to talk about recruiting? Let's talk about recruiting. Dejon Lee was being courted by Georgia. He was being courted by USC and Bama heavily. There were articles August of 2023 that, hey, he's really feeling USC. What does Georgia go do? Well, when Nick Saban retires, they get T-Rob, and then they go and get USC's defensive backs coach. So now, if you're Dejon Lee, you know Kirby Smart, you know T-Rob because T-Rob was recruiting you at Alabama, and you know Dante Williams because Dante Williams was recruiting you right down the street, and there were articles talking about what a great job USC was doing. Alabama beats Georgia for Dejon Lee. Georgia had Kirby. They had T-Rob. They had Dante Williams. Bama had a new guy come in Mo. They beat them. Ivan Taylor is going to be a star. Jackson Lloyd is going to be a star. And then we talk about the evals from DeBoer. Parker Brailsford, best center in the nation. Jeremy Bernard, one of the best wide receivers in the nation. Josh Cuevas, a blessing to this team. Where is this staff missed on evals? Ladies and gentlemen, this is the staff. DeBoer is the guy. I'm not sitting here trying to tell you that you're going to have another Nick Saban run. What I am sitting, and Courtney Morgan, what a hire. Best GM in college football. You're 100% right, EO boy. You're 100% right. They've coached up the rooms, as my Apple is betraying me. They've coached up the room. They have won on the recruiting trail. They are developing. They are recruiting. Tried to keep us down. Vandy tried to make one last attempt at the Tide. It didn't work. Let's get the camera in focus. This is a big win. I admittedly was more concerned about Vandy than I was Georgia. You've just won back-to-back ranked games. Now, it isn't going to be easy ahead for Alabama. Missouri is next, and they have got an incredible running back, a genuinely incredible running back. But Alabama's defense is getting better. Alabama is getting better, and we need to address some of these narratives. The narrative that Kalen DeBoer wasn't the guy. That's not it. Kalen DeBoer has done an incredible job with developing, with recruiting, with evals, and with buy-in. The buy-in of this team is palpable. This team feels different. This team feels different than a lot of even. This team just feels different. And I can't believe in the year of our Lord 2025, I'm sitting here saying what a big win it is that you just beat Vandy. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, to put a bow on this, the score wasn't close. In terms, it was a 16-point Bama win. It should have been a lot bigger. Bama's defense played a great game, actually. I know there's a lot of stuff out there to the contrary. 126 yards allowed in the first half on the ground. 101 of that came from 2 plays. 9 yards rushing in the second half. Beautiful. Beautiful stuff. And Alabama rolls. We will be back Monday giving a recap after I've rewatched the game. Then Thursday, we'll be doing a preview of Missouri. I'm going to go watch a few Missouri games, tell you the matchups I'm excited to see. And then we will be back here Saturday night, or Saturday afternoon. I forget it's an 11 a.m. game. We'll be back here Saturday afternoon reacting to Alabama, hopefully yet another win. And if they win that, watch out, because then Alabama would have stacked 3 ranked wins in a row. Bama's got a real tough stretch right now. They got Missouri, they got Tennessee, they got South Carolina, they got LSU, then they have Oklahoma. It's a real tough stretch. Getting this win was big. Getting this win was really big, and I'm excited to see you all on Saturday. Please show up Monday for that video. You all enjoy the rest of your day. There's UFC on, there's college football on, and I'm ready to watch it. Roll Tide, y'all.